Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here then hi, my name is Miss Paris and I'm a newly qualified primary school teacher here in the UK. Today I want to keep this video short and sweet because I had to close the window in order for it to be quieter and it is warmer here. So let's start with some tips to make sure that you can get organised and plan ahead during your trainee year. Now I'll be the first to admit that planning individual lessons in advance is quite difficult. Let's say I would spend a weekend preparing Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday lesson. After Monday lesson I would end up planning Tuesday again. I found that planning way in advance was just not effective and not time efficient. However, with assignments, you definitely can plan ahead. The moment you find out your title, you can already make a brainstorm around ideas that you might talk about. You could already start to read some journal articles. Trust me, it's much easier to read even one a week and then work on your assignment for a month than try and read everything in 1 week and write everything in 1 week. You're looking around about 3,500 to 4,000 words per essay. You can't do that in a week, especially when you're still expected to lesson plan, attend staff meetings, do marking. So just try and get ahead on those assignments. The moment you receive your title, just start to think about what you could do, what you could research. I did do a whole video about how to find journal articles effectively. I will leave it down below. But assignments is definitely something that I would not recommend leaving to the last minute, and just spread out the workload across the time you have to do it. It honestly makes so much difference. The next thing I want to talk to you about are resources. So in primary and in secondary you will have so many of these, be it worksheets or maybe fact files or homework sheets, whatever it is, but you do not want to use, let's say, your PPA time or your free time outside of the classroom to plan these. It is so much better if you already plan these at home, you've already got them ready to go, because then you can spend that whole time printing them off or cutting them or whatever you need to do to them. If you spend that whole time preparing them, knowing it's, let's say, for the next day, and then you get home, you're like, oh yay, I've done all my lesson planning, I'm all good. And then you get in the morning and suddenly you need to print off 30 sheets for one lesson and 30 for the next lesson, and then you needed some master copies or some answers. You're suddenly going to be overwhelmed with printing, and in the morning you're not going to be the only one wanting to use that printer. So that's something to be mindful of. Try and prepare in advance so that when you do have free time at school you can make use of those resources, make use of that time to get everything ready. And what I'd like to do by the end, when I was getting really prepared, I used to lay out every single thing ahead of the lesson. So when I came into the lesson I had the GD worksheets or the ARE worksheets, or if they were mixed ability groups I would have every activity laid out all ready to go. So that's a really good time management tip, and it also saves you time the next day. And in the morning you don't want to feel rushed and stressed because that kind of sets your day off in the wrong way. So I would definitely do this tip. Okay, so lesson planning. I just mentioned that it's really difficult to plan lessons in advance. So what tip can I give you on getting organised with lesson plans? Well, what I would say is if you are going to be teaching, let's say, a whole topic. So when I was teaching maths, I did a whole topic on time. What I did is I planned every single thing that I wanted to cover. Obviously, this is mostly inspired by the national curriculum. So I said, okay, I have 6 lessons to do this, and in that time I want to cover 24-hour clock, reading minutes, I want to cover writing digital time, that kind of thing. And so when you've got this idea, it means that depending on how your first lesson could go, you could then pick the ideas of what could come next. So rather than sitting there in front of an empty lesson plan thinking, okay, what can I do now? I've done this, some got it, some didn't get it. I have no idea. You can look at the things that you wanted to cover by the end of your series of lessons and be like, okay, so those who understood this, I think this would make sense to progress to this next, and those that weren't sure on this, I will scaffold it, and then as an extension task, if they do get it, I will then move them on to this. Because that way, in the long run, you will save time. If every single evening you're sat there for an hour thinking, okay, what shall I do for tomorrow, and then you actually still need to make the resources, it's going to take you ages. So have that done in advance. The moment you find out what you're going to teach, or ask your mentor in advance what you're going to teach, then you can get started on that. Again, using the national curriculum will help you so much. And also, which leads on nicely to my next point about teaching standards, if you research these things in advance, then you can evidence that as part of your Teacher Standard 3, which is about subject knowledge. So in every single evidence bundle that I did, I would have a whole kind of A4 dedicated to the bits of research I did and the key points I took away. So for the national curriculum, I would highlight, okay, these are the bits that I'm looking at. Then I would look at my county guidelines about this subject, what they recommend, and that already forms a whole bullet point of evidence, and you were just going to do that anyway. So that's a really good free tip for you there. So I mentioned I would talk about the teaching standards. This is information that is available to everyone. It's very easy. You can just Google it and you have a nice A4 overview that the government provides you, which I will leave a link down below if that helps. But you can already have a look at these in time for September and just familiarise yourself. What does each teaching standard focus on? So for example, Teaching Standard 7 focuses on behaviour management, Teaching Standard 6 focuses on assessments, and then while you teach, naturally just keep some things either in a file or per teaching standard if you're organised, and that way when it comes to the deadline of your evidence folder, then you can just gather all these pieces up and analyse them. Okay, I have 2 tips left for you. If you have made it this far, then well done. I know you are dedicated to getting organised, keeping on track and maintaining that good work-life balance. I'm going to give you my best tip right at the end, so make sure that you stick along for that, because that, in my opinion, is the one that is hardest to nail and the one that really needs to be spoken about the most in the teaching community. But for now, this tip is about your placement. So if you do university routes, you might have different placements in a lot of different schools, but if you are doing a school-based skit, then normally you just have 2, one main one and then another one that you go to for around 4 to 6 weeks. So what I would do to make sure that you are prepared for your new placement is the moment you get the name of the school and your mentor, I would contact your mentor and I would look at the school website. I have 2 videos on this, what to ask your mentor and what to do when you find out your placement, so I will put the descriptions down below so that you can have a look at those as well. I go into a lot more detail about that there. Okay, my last tip is about scheduling in personal time. We can often forget about this as teachers or student teachers, and we kind of think, okay, well, I've got this to do, this to do, this to do. I think this would really benefit the well-being of this child and I think I should do this as an intervention, and you can suddenly become completely dominated by these thoughts of how to help and support the children or the teenagers that you teach. But it's important to take some you time, and I don't think I did this enough, and sometimes you did feel overwhelmed, especially when you maybe didn't have a great day at school and then you suddenly have to come back home and then you're still doing everything for them. So whether it's scheduling in a date night or scheduling a time to go out with some friends or just having a night off where you don't do anything education related, do that. But you do need to make sure that you don't get behind on anything, and so to do that, make sure you schedule it in, like in a diary, on a calendar, whatever you use. So say I want to have Wednesday night off because it's nice in the middle of the week and I just want a break. So Tuesday you're going to need to make sure that you've got everything prepared for Wednesday and that you get a head start on the Thursday things. Or if you know that you're going to have Wednesday off during the school day, make sure that you mark on the go, make sure you either do a whole class marking session, make sure that you don't have to go home with anything. And if you know that you're going to be teaching on the Thursday, then try and get ahead of that on Tuesday evening, or try and do that during breaks if you really want to, but I wouldn't recommend that because we need those. Okay, so those are all of my tips on how to get organised, plan ahead, but also keeping it realistic, because I know that you're not going to be able to do weeks of material in advance. So I really hope that this helped you. If it did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, because then YouTube will recommend it to other trainees, and leave a comment below if you have any other suggestions or tell me which you found most useful. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so that you can be notified every time I post teacher content. See you next time. Bye!